Hello and welcome to Taylor Talks Comics. Today I'm going to show off my library haul. I went to a new library and got some new books, so I'm going to show them off to you. Stay tuned. Okay, so give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, comment down below with your thoughts on any of these books or just comics in general. So I went to a new library. We found out, which I encourage people to do this as well, support your libraries. You'll find libraries have really good comics, or use the Hoopla system digitally. I might do a video on that. But we found out that we have another library that's kind of close to us that takes the same library card we have from the one that's closest, our local library, and you can use it at another library, and they just use that, call the other library, make sure you're still in good standing, and then you can use that library at their library. Does that make sense? That's probably very confusing. Regardless, I had a new library to look at with new books, and right away, this book was on the racks right when we walked in, and I knew I was in a good place. I knew that this library had the comics I wanted, because a little secret, our local library doesn't have the best comic book selection. I've always been kind of disappointed by it. They have great kids comics and great manga selection, but not like the Western comic selection is lacking. But I knew this was on the racks, and I said I know I'm in a good place. If they have Dwellings by Jay Stevens, published by Oni Press, there you are, Oni Press, a smaller publisher, I knew I was in a good place. So I got this actually. I've read every issue of Dwellings. I have all the single issues. I backed them all on. I think the first issue was on Kickstarter, and then issues 2 through 6 were on, I want to say Baccarat, maybe one of the other crowdfunding places, whichever one Black Eye Publishing uses, because that's who published the original 6 issues. They're a Canadian publisher that I think had spent a number of years not doing anything. They came back with Dwellings and with Dishman, the superhero Dishman. I got that hardcover from them as well. Now Dwellings has been put together. The 6 issues were then compiled and reprinted by Oni Press. I believe they did like 2 issues per. So it was like 2-in-1 issues. So they did 3 issues total of Dwellings that collected each of the 6 issues. And then they put in this hardcover. And I've been looking at this hardcover. I've been wanting to compare it to the single issues that I have. And I'm going to do a comparison video, because the single issues have like fake ads in there from Jay Stevens. They're printed on this, like the cheap newsprint paper to kind of mimic the style, which I'll talk about in a second of what this is kind of mimicking. And I wanted to know if the hardcover kind of maintained those aspects that I love about the single issues, and if this is worth having, because my preference is always the collected edition. I'd love to have a spine and a book to put on my shelf, as opposed to having all my comics in like a short box, for instance. So I'm showing this book off now to show how cool it is, but I'm going to do a comparison video to the single issues on a separate video as well. So here's the front cover. Here's the spine. Obviously, you're going to see library stickers. I can't show off what it looks like underneath there, but you can imagine. Dwellings by Jay Stevens. You get the Oni Press logo there. Here's the back cover. And an important note, this looks like it's for kids because it's done in like the Harvey Comics style, but you'll see this little, instead of the Comics Code Authority, they mimicked it with this different style from Jay Stevens with a raven on it, or a crow, I'm sorry. It says, definitely not for kids or cowards. Get a blurb on here from Carl Kessel, House of Nerd, and Phil Hester. Oni Press logo there. So I also want to know the presentation of this book, how well it's put together, and any cool extras that are in it that were not in the single issues. Those are things I'm looking out for. Because if it's the case where I want to get the hardcover, I'll probably sell off my singles, or I might just keep my singles and not even bother getting the hardcover. That's what I wanted to do. Get blurbs in here from everyone from Boing Boing to WWE wrestler Tegan Knox to Stephen Bissett, Matt Kent, 2 of my favorite artists in comics. I love this opening page here. Again, the presentation of the book, that's not something I'm going to get in the single issues. It's really cool. And it is on this, it's on a thicker matte paper, but it does still have that mimicked newsprint. You can see it, I don't know if it's showing up on camera. My lighting's not the best, but It is like a little, it's not pure white. It's like a grayish tone to it. So it has that kind of newsprint-y look to it. This volume collects Dwellings 1 through 6, originally published by Black Eye Books. You get an introduction here. Elwich is here. Some other... And this is the front cover. So that's another thing I wanted to know. I talk about this on my channel a lot, is I always want, in collect editions, having the cover before each issue. I think it's an important thing. If it originally came out in single issues, it should be presented that way in the collected edition. It was paced. The stories were written and paced for a single issue comic. You should have some sort of chapter break. I'm looking at you, Robert Kirkman. So this is the front cover. They left the trade dress off of there, though. Again, in the comparison video, I'll have the single issue to compare with you. And look at this. They kept the fake ads in there. I like that. But this is done... Jay Stevens is an amazing cartoonist from Canada. And this is done in the Harvey Comics style. Harvey Comics, if you are not familiar, is the publishing house of, I think, like the golden age. I think 40s, 50s, 60s is when their heyday. But they lasted much further into the 90s. They might even still be around for all I know. But what they're famous for, though, was the Casper, the Friendly Ghost comics, Richie Rich, that kind of style, which you can definitely see the characters are drawn in that style. But you can see that the characters all kind of have a modern look to them because these are present-day stories. But these are definitely not for kids. So the Harvey comics were for kids. These are definitely not. There's violence involved in these. I will say that there is a little bit of warning. There is some animal harm and some self-harm depictions in here. So if those are things that you're worried about, I would definitely be leery of that. Here's my bookmark because I'm currently rereading this before I do my comparison video. I did notice too, like you have this fake ad in here, and I love this because then on the next page, it's actually the back of the book this character is reading. So I always love when fake ads take place more than just the ad itself. And here's the issue number 2. You even see like the fake aging to the covers there, which I always love. That kind of touch that that these artists add to these comics to try to make them look aged. Jay Stevens does a great job there. Other cartoonists I've seen do this are like Jim Rugg, Ed Piskor. I will say, no, it is different. Okay, I was gonna say it looks like the same fake dog-eared. That's like printed on the book. So I'm actually banged up right there. But actually, it looks like a different image. Maybe, I don't know. Because that is one thing too. When you're doing this fake aged look, you can't keep repeating that same thing on every single cover. It'll look fake. And you don't want it to look fake. You want it to look like it's truly aged. I know Ed Piskor talked about how he would get around that, is that he would scan in, for like the fake yellowed look on the pages, he would scan in a bunch of old comics at different pages. So you never repeat the same page on another one to make it kind of not keep that consistency. So yeah, it keeps, and each issue I think is about 40 pages. So they're a little bit lengthier. They're somewhere 30, 40 pages. They're lengthier issues. I do want to say it looks like they're separated between the 6 issues, not just the way that Oni did it, where there were 2 issues per one issue. Which I guess I should have got those 2 to compare. I don't know. I wonder if they have the cover in between the stories in that one or not. But yeah, definitely gory, definitely violent in tone, in subject matter, mature subject matter, so definitely not for kids, not even close. I don't know that, I'm definitely not gonna let my son read this, even though it looks cool, and I think he said he wanted to read it because it looked cool, but not until he's a teenager, probably. Huh?
Hi,
Here's my son right here.
yeah, I asked him because I thought it looked like Casper.
Oh yes, Riley likes the actual Harvey comics.
I've never done it. I like to collect them, but I mostly have ones that are I need to continue, so I never get to finish.
Well, there's a million of them. It's hard to collect all of them, but
like your Shang-Chi.
Yeah. Well, there's even more than that. Like Richie Rich, for instance, there was, I think I read somewhere crazy, there's like 10 different Richie Rich comics coming out every single month. So it's like every single month they're pouring out these comics. But Riley, he's not looking over here, so don't worry about all this, him looking at this violent stuff. He's over there reading Dogman. here's the cover gallery. So these were the covers for the Oni Press single issues. So they did keep that in here. And there was a cover A and then the bloody variant, which is exactly the same, but they colored it with lots of blood on top of it. Here's a cover by Joe Palmer, Jenna Cha, Brian Level, Dan White, Jay Stevens, cover A and the bloody variant for issue number 2. David Lopez, Dave Barden, Jay Stevens, issue number 3 with the bloody variant, with Pester the Clown. Trad Moore doing a cover, which is amazing. I love Trad Moore's art. And then here's the second printing, so it's cool to see that with the Oni Press single issues 1, 2, and 3 all went to second printings. So I know this is a very successful crowdfunded campaign for Jay Stevens and Black Eye Comics. It's great to see that the single issues with Oni Press went to second printings, and I'm hoping this hardcover sells well. Because Jay Stevens is a cartoonist that deserves to be supported enough to where he can keep making comics for as long as he possibly can. But if you're not familiar, Jay Stevens also did his own creator-owned series, Sin, The Land of Nod, Atomic City Tales, and Jet Cat Clubhouse. He's also worked for Aliens, Star Wars, Teen Titans, and The Invisibles. And he did a couple Saturday morning cartoons. Jet Cat was produced for TV. I don't know how many episodes that actually lasted, but I know Secret Saturdays lasted for a little bit. So he has a background in animation as well, which you can imagine works well. So stay tuned for the comparison video of that. The next book I got from the new library is Spa by Eric Sevtoft. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry. This is put out by Fantagraphics, and this is like a surreal horror comic. All the books I'm showing off are going to get their own separate videos, but 3 of the 4 might end up being saved for October. I don't know when I'll release those, because I kind of have this goal that I want to release 31 horror comics for the 31 days of October. I do a video each day. So I'm trying to read these comics and make videos on them separately and ahead of time, so I'm not making a video every single day in October. It's kind of my goal to have all those videos recorded and uploaded and ready to go before October 1st. But we'll see how that goes. This is put out by Fantagraphics, and this is a thick book, you can see. And I've been wanting to read this for a long time. So again, this awesome library had this great comic that I've been wanting to read. They had Oni Press stuff. They had Fantagraphics. A bunch of independent publishers, which is cool. So this seems to be like surrealist horror, which is my favorite genre of horror, I think. Horror comics. Like when I say surrealist horror, like the mainstream example is like a David Lynch or Eric Cronenberg movie in cinema. Those are like the mainstream versions. But my favorite surreal horror comics, I would say, would be like Black Hole by Charles Burns, or Like a Velvet Glove Cast in Iron from Daniel Klaus. And this is like in the same kind of tone. Obviously, the art style is very different. From what I understand, I've never read this before. I've actually, this of the 4 books I've picked up, I've read 2 of them now already. This one is the one I haven't even opened yet. So I'm excited to dive into this. But you can see the subject matter is very unsettling, creepy, makes you feel uncomfortable when reading it. Kind of surrealist horror, and that's kind of my favorite kind of stuff. But it's a thick, I think it's almost 400 pages. It's 320 pages. And no back matter. It just ends. So, which I don't know if it doesn't even have an author page. So I'd like to pick up more stuff from Eric. I do like his art style. No, but he is from, I wish I knew this too. Whenever I do the separate video on this, I'll figure this out. But this was translated by Melissa Bowers. I'm not sure what Eric's native language is. But I'll figure that out. So it's Spa by Eric Sevtoft. Next, I got Superman Space Age. This is by Mark Russell, Mike Allred. I already read this. So I picked up the first issue off the stands, loved it, and then I was like, I'm gonna pick up all 3 issues whenever they do the Inevitable Deluxe Edition, when it's oversized, because I love Mike Allred's artwork and I can't wait to see it oversized. Then they announced they're coming out with standard size hardcover. Why? I don't know. But I've been wanting to read this, but I've been waiting for deluxe hardcover. This library had it, so this is a good way for me to check it out, read it, and then I can make a decision for myself if I want to pick up when it comes into hardcover, or maybe an absolute. I know that this team, Mark Russell and Mike Allred, have done or are doing currently Batman Dark Age, which is kind of a similar theme or idea. And then they said that Mike Allred on Omnidog's Vault, when he was interviewed, said there's a third series that they're going to do together for DC, and it's not what we think it's going to be. So they have said that it's obviously you think Superman, Batman, you think Wonder Woman would be the obvious choice, right? But it sounds like if Mike Allred specifically said it's not what you think it'll be, maybe it won't be Wonder Woman. I don't know. But I'm definitely going to do another video on this one too, because this is amazing. It's kind of Mark Russell and Mike Allred taking Superman from it's kind of an Elseworlds tale, but also kind of brings in a lot of the canon and makes sense of it with some real world events happening throughout history. Almost like a Grand Design kind of type story from Marvel with X-Men Grand Design, Fantastic Four, Hulk Grand Design, but probably closer in line with what you got from New Frontier by Darwin Cook, I would say, in kind of that thematic type story. But I just read this now, so I have read all 3 issues. I'll do a full video on it to tell you and explain everything that I felt about it. And it takes them through the 70s and 80s too. So like the first issue 60s, second issue 70s, third issue 80s. But I have a lot of thoughts about this. I love Mike Allred. He's my current artist in comics. He's my number one currently, and without question, like it's not even close. I love anything he draws. I will buy. So I knew I was gonna like that. Mark Russell though is a writer that every time I read something from him, I'm like, man, I need more Mark Russell comics in my life. So this one, just a little teaser, left me feeling the same way. I came here for the Mike Allred art, and I stayed and ended up loving the story because of Mark Russell. So, back matter here, you get some variant covers. You got Nick Darrington, Steve Rude, which is I want to say was a mentor of Mike Allred back in the day, but he's famous for his series on Nexus and some other stuff. Nick Darrington cover, Dave Johnson, another great cartoonist. Nick Darrington again, Joe Quiones. And here's working over the logo designs. It doesn't say Mike Allred was doing these logo designs. It doesn't say who was doing them. I would wish there was a credit on that, because I always love lettering in comics, and I love to see who does the designs. Here's a penciled cover for number 1 that you can see Mike Allred reworked and came up with a more puzzling look on Superman's face, which I think works a lot better. So it's a cool little editorial piece on Allred's part. And then other books you can get with Mark Russell's writing. So that's really cool. And the 4th book I got in my library haul was Slash Them All by Antoine Maillard. This was a horror comic from Fantagraphics. Came out a couple years ago, and I've been wanting to read it. So again, the library had it. Why not? This will definitely be popping up on my Spooktober Halloween videos. The title lettering there is kind of debossed. I don't think you could tell there. And then Slash Them All with Antoine Maillard's name. And then the back cover, there's some I don't know what that is, like candle wax or something on the back of the cover. That is one of the downsides of library books, is you get people that didn't really take care of them. I don't know. Here's the end papers on the front and the back. I do like when end papers are different, so it's really cool that they did that. And then you dive into it, Slash Them All. Very cinematic in tone when you're opening it, which matches the subject matter. So this is my first comic I've ever read by Antoine Maillard. I believe he's a younger cartoonist. I believe he was a couple years younger than I am. And this was his first full-length graphic novel. And you can see it's done all in these pencil etchings, all pencils, no inks, which I love, because he's like a master with this pencil. You can see the different tones and shading. He only need one color. It's literally just black and gray pencil lines, but he's using the pencil and the different shading to create a version of color, I guess. I don't know. You know what I mean? There's no no issues distinguishing between characters and settings and whatnot. And then the expressions on people's faces are amazing. Just a few sparse lines to create the characters' faces, but they all look distinct. This is a really amazing story. I read this in one sitting the other night when I came home from the library, and I'm going to do a deeper dive. But the whole theme here is it's based on, it's kind of a love letter to all the great slasher flicks of the 80s, like Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Friday the 13th, like those kind of slasher flicks. And it's a love letter to those, and it's this town that has its own kind of serial killer slasher coming through it with the air of mystery of who is the killer and how it affects all the characters around in the town. So definitely do a link to your video on that. Here's a picture of Antoine Maillard. Looks like he studied at the European School of Visual Arts in Angoulême and the School of Decorative Arts in Strasbourg. So, yeah. That's it. That's my library haul. Slash them all. Superman Space Age, Spa, and Dwellings. Let me know in the comments down below if you go to libraries, if this has influenced you to go to libraries and support them, look for comics, and what you think of any of these books. I love talking comics. I reply to all comments, so definitely do that. And give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video with all your friends. I appreciate it. Have a great day, and keep reading comics.